Okay, here we are. Hi, everybody. This is David Blackman. Welcome to the Energy Question. We're going to have a little departure today. My special guest today is Vince Palamara, one of the premier researchers into the Kennedy assassination, the JFK assassination. He has done incredible work. He's written a series of books detailing, focusing in large part about the role of the Secret Service played in the assassination of John F. Kennedy Jr. And given everything that's going on, this mushrooming scandal that we have here with the Secret Service in the wake of the Trump shooting, I reached out to Vince, see if he'd come on and talk to us about it. Vince, how are you today?
Very good. Thanks a lot for having me on, Dave. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so definitely there's a lot to talk about as far as this
Boy,
incident. Phew.
I have to imagine for you with the focus you've had with your writing and research, watching all this play out this week. And I've been a JFK buff for 50 years. I actually did a little research work with Jim Mars when he was working on Crossfire 30 years
Oh,
ago.
great. Oh, yeah.
Just a wonderful guy. And
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he was.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I just watching all this unfold this week has to just be fascinating for you. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
this drip, drip, drip of information, isn't it?
It's two parts. First of all, it's right up my area, Secret Service negligence or worse. And then you have, this is unbelievable, a small world it is. You have the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks from my hometown, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. He
No
lives like
way.
5 minutes. He lives 5 minutes away on Milford Drive. They've said the street address
Yeah,
several times
yeah.
on the news. But yeah, he lives 5 minutes away. So first of all, it was like, oh, okay, former President Trump's rally, Butler, PA, about 45 minutes north of Pittsburgh. So that was noteworthy. Hey, he's in the backyard, so to speak. But then this again, it's a two-part thing with Thomas Matthew Crooks. Not only is he from Bethel Park, I'm from Bethel Park. I graduated years before him, 5 minutes away. But also, my mom passed away last year. But she was in work. He worked in the same skilled nursing home that my mom was staying at. So it's just like, oh
Wow.
my
That's
gosh,
crazy.
yeah.
That's wild,
It's
man.
really wild. So it was hit me on two fronts Saturday onward. It's just like trying to
Yeah.
wrap my head around why this was allowed to happen, the unbelievable negligence or worse, and then coupled with the assassin in the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's so fascinating to me, having read a couple of your books and 50 other books about the assassination over the years. Um, it's here we are 60 years later, and some of the same problems with the Secret Service that popped up that got Kennedy shot in 63 or helped get him shot
Yeah.
are now popping up here in this. I
Yes.
mean, all these years later. I
Yeah.
mean, go ahead, go
If
ahead.
you want, Dave, I could actually go through what went wrong and
Yes,
all that.
yeah,
Definitely do that.
please.
Yeah. Well, first thing was the assassin. Well, you know, future assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks at that point. He was acting suspiciously by the magnetometers. Now, the magnetometers are the metal
Yeah,
detectors people go through. Like if you think about the airports and whatnot, but they also do that with presidential rallies where they make sure people go through and they check their pockets. Is anything metal, like such as a knife or a gun or bullets, whatnot. They can't take that through. That's how they have all those massive amount of people there, and they're able to do that. Well, he didn't go through the magnetometers, and he had hunting rangefinder
yeah,
glasses, which was really bizarre. They weren't your standard binoculars, so people were like, "Okay, what's up with this?" He was already on law enforcement radar there about an hour before it all began. All right, and then when it all is about to transpire, jump back actually, I'd say within a half hour, he was on law enforcement radar,
right.
really specifically. But then you had the rooftop that was adjacent to the speech site, about 140 yards away, was not manned. There was no
Yeah,
drones. There was nobody manning it, either state or local police or an agent or all the above. It's just incredible to me in this day and age, not only just after the Kennedy assassination, most seasoned researchers think there was a conspiracy of shooters from the rear and the front. So it's no contradiction to say, well, Oswald or whoever was in the rooftop, since then the Secret Service has learned their lesson and they make sure to have rooftops guarded. Now, the thing is, actually, rooftops have been guarded since the FDR days. I
right.
have that in my books and future books showing that many times FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, and JFK had rooftop protection. It's not just, oh, because of the assassination, they started to do that. They did that years before. But to the point is, You would think after all that transpired, the modern day Secret Service would have it in their grain. John Cusis and people just out there that didn't know a lick about security, they're amateurs, they're not researchers or authors or nothing, were looking around, and all of a sudden they spotted him climbing up a ladder and doing this like kind of like military crawl with his elbows, and they're shouting. And the great thing about the iPhone digital, videos and photos is that they don't lie. They show, and everyone's yelling. You can hear in real time Trump's speech echoing, so you can actually, to the second, you could see where he was doing what he was doing.
Right,
And
right.
saying, "Officer, there's some of the building." And so law enforcement is even more aware of him now. Now, the director of the Secret Service, oh, I can't believe what she said. Kimberly Cheadle came out and said, well, it was a sloped roof, and that's the reason why we couldn't have anybody roof. In the meantime, it's sloped roofs. Two of them were where the counter sniper teams are at. Exactly,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean,
Counter
here's a
sniper
slope
teams.
roof, folks.
Exactly. And in the White House, part of the White House is a sloped roof, and there's many still photos of,
Right.
Secret Service officers were there. But the counter assault team, or CAT is their acronym, they were on the roof. And I spoke to Dan Emmett, who was a former counter assault agent, CAT. And while he said the counter assault team did a great job, he said the Secret Service definitely dropped the ball. I mean, it's like common sense. You get there, the first thing you see is this glaring rooftop. Why isn't anybody on there standing there with, some sort of rifle or, machine gun, something? And again,
Weren't
at
there? I
first,
mean, we've
good.
had a report, and I wonder if you've been able to confirm or deny it. There was a report that the local police actually had people stationed inside the building. They were supposedly securing that building from the inside. Is that right?
That was their staging area. So ironically, their
Okay.
staging
Okay.
area was under the roof that he was crawling on, where nobody was on top of it. And it goes a sloped roof, so it did create a little bit of a camouflage for him, so to speak, from the eyes of the counter assault teams, the two that were on sloped roofs, adjacent to
Right.
Trump looking out. And I think what happened was the counter assault teams are very well trained, just like the regular agents, and they saw someone, but their first reaction was probably, that has to be one of our guys. Has to be one of our guys.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
why would this be glaring? There's no way. Human nature kind of kicked in their thinking. And then when he popped his head up again and they saw the rifle, that's where you see in real time the counter assault sniper. He goes like this, and then he goes back down and he
Yeah.
shoots to
Yeah.
kill. And they're authorized to shoot to kill. None of this waiting for an order or
So
none of
they
this
weren't
wounding.
they were not waiting for an order. He
No,
just
no, absolutely
he
not.
okay. All right.
They shoot to kill. They have authorized legally. There's no lawsuits. Nothing can ever be done towards them. It's like Navy SEALs. Shoot to kill. Ask questions later. They have to, because it's split seconds. There's no way they could wait for their boss or someone else to tell them, is it okay to shoot? And that's why there was a hesitation. Actually, I really don't blame the counter assault team. They had to do what they did. They were handicapped because the whole thing was that building. Number one, there's other areas of negligence, but the number one thing on the hit parade is that rooftop was left
Yeah.
wide open. And again, it's really glaring when all these citizens were looking up there. And, at first they said President Trump came within an inch to 2 inches of his life. It was actually like millimeters. If Trump
Millimeters.
didn't turn
Yes,
to look at that
absolutely.
chart, if he didn't turn
Yeah.
to look at that chart, we lost the president. I'm telling you what, like the 1992 Rodney King LA riots, imagine that all over the country. I
Oh my
think you would
God.
have
Yeah.
solved violence and riots, civil war. I think it would have been like the pandemic where people had to work from home. You were not allowed into town. There would be rationing because people couldn't go to the store because of violence, and people would be killed and injured and property damage. And it all would have stemmed from a successful assassination, all because there has to be investigation. I want answers. It's not enough to just dismiss people. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, you give them, a little pound of flesh, but we want to know, why was this I still can't fathom it. I mean, if this
No, I
was
know.
1924, maybe 100 years ago, but this is 2024 after a successful assassination with John F. Kennedy, with Reagan, the assassination March 30th, 1981. And by the way, those agents did a brilliant job. They covered it and
They
evacuated.
did.
That's what the
Yes.
Secret Service, their whole thing. So, okay, so you have that sequence of events anywhere between an hour to a half hour before he was on the radar, and then when he's on the roof, there's several precious minutes where the people are calling out and saying, "Hey, there's someone on the roof, someone on the roof." The counter sniper team, within about 40 seconds before the assassination, sees him and doesn't fire right away because they're thinking he's probably one of. I'm speculating, but it's good speculation. I think they thought it originally was one of our guys because they were probably incredulous too. That's only when
And
they
that
saw
makes
him
sense. Yeah.
aiming the rifle that they did what they
Yeah.
did. The other major gaffe is that while President Trump got down and the agents jumped up there and they made sure he stayed down, they let him get up and become a stationary target.
Right.
They
With a
left him.
little 5'4" girl in front of him. He's a
Yeah,
foot taller than his whole head's exposed.
yeah, exactly, Dave.
Yeah.
And President Trump's a lot. It's good, iconic photos. It was good for morale. He's going like this, and USA, USA, fight, 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 going like this. But the thing is, he was exposed. Now I understand somebody might say, "Well, Vince, what about the radio now said that the shooter? It's clear, shooters down." That was for that shooter. You could never, in
Yeah.
those precious seconds or minutes after, assume that's it. Up, we're all done. Shooter done. There could very well be another shooter. And actually, there's grist for the mill. There were several reports. I actually saw one lady on CNN shortly after said that there was a water tower and they thought a shooter was up there. Now,
Yeah. In
even if it
fact,
turned out
this
it was not
video,
true, yeah, there you
right.
go.
I don't think it's true, but yeah, this video does, uh, at least towards the end here, it's going to zoom
There
in
you
on
go.
the tower. Here's the water tower behind the
Yeah.
stage.
And like you said, even
And
if it's not true, you got to assume there's a conspiracy and there's more than one assailant. You could
right.
never assume otherwise because they made him stationary and stand upright, and his face and chest were exposed. And then he's grousing for his shoes, saying, "Can I get my shoes, please?" Shoes. And they ended up in another video. He actually just threw him on the ground from the podium. But
Right.
then it's like Keystone Cops. They got him, several female agents and a couple of the male agents. They got him to the black SUVs. The one girl didn't know how to take her pistol out of her holster. It was like it
She
would be
couldn't get
a
it back
yeah,
in. Yeah.
she couldn't get it out. And now it turns out these agents were relatively new. They were basically
Right.
replacement agents, not all of them, but most of them, because President Trump's regular detail was overburdened by the schedule lately. So they took a break. And I think it was a sequence of events. Butler County, Butler, PA is Trump country. That's all red up there. So they probably figured we're in
Right.
an open air situation. We got the magnetometers, we can afford to have a little bit of a drop in security because he's out in the open. That's red. They love him up there. And they're going to magnetometers for all the people that are going to be sitting, standing, going through on the ground. And the big assumption was that that rooftop was covered. If they would have had a drone or human coverage,
Yeah,
okay,
why
but the
no
fact they
drones?
didn't.
That's another
Yeah,
question. Do they not use drones?
yes,
I
yes,
mean,
they
it
do.
seems like that would have been an ideal situation for
Right,
one, if you're
exactly.
short-handed.
You
Yeah.
figure like when they secure the FBI and Secret Service, they secure the Super Bowl because there's like between 60 and 100,000 or more people there, just right there. They have drones all over the place, and they have the counter
Right.
assault teams and all that. So you had these agents that were in place, and they weren't his regular agents, with one exception. The one gentleman in the iconic photo, it would be on Trump's left, camera right, with the sunglasses. He was one of his regular agents. In fact, I recognized him from the New York trial. Yes, this video is amazing. You're showing right
This is
here.
a fantastic video. Yeah.
This is the one that really shows in real time that they're yelling for him up there. He crawled up the ladder.
Right.
Now he's going to
That's
do this
what's happening on
crawl.
the left. Yeah.
And he's not even trying to hide himself too much. Maybe
Yeah.
from his perspective, it looked like he couldn't be seen. I don't know. But look at that.
But
Look
there's
at that.
there's a dozen people watching him and yelling for the police, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at least a dozen.
And here's the thing you got to consider: for the Secret Service, 6 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds is like a lifetime, plenty of time to react. So he had all this time. And the other thing, Dave, is they didn't have a bulletproof glass partition in front of Trump.
Right. Right.
Just think of two famous examples for your listeners would be when President-elect Obama in November of 2008 came out with Michelle and the kids in Chicago. There was all thousands of people who were obviously in front of a big glass partition, which was bulletproof. Well, when in January 6th, 2021, President Trump down there in the Capitol, he's there in front of a big partition. There's other examples. Those are probably the most high profile in this day and age. Why didn't he do that? Didn't even probably still would be good to have it, but you could technically not need rooftop security if you would have had this bulletproof glass partition. They didn't do that. It's just,
And that's almost inexplicable to me. Because it's such a simple thing, right? And it would have been
yes,
easy to set up, easy to take down. It's not like it's a huge, big construction project you got to do with it.
Exactly.
It's just bizarre to me that something like that wasn't there. Um, yeah, and it reminds me too, so much of the Kennedy assassination, you talk about rooftop coverage, and he's going through Dealey Plaza. The route gets, changed a week before the assassination. He's going through this plaza with all these high-rise buildings, and the Secret Service has claimed, at least, that it didn't have any agents on the ground in Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, and yet people ran into him. Joe Marshall Smith of the Dallas Police ran into one. That's the most infamous one.
Right.
Said the guy looked like an auto mechanic, and he didn't think to check him at the time because we were so pressed for time. But something didn't ring true. Turns out he was right because the Treasury Department came afterwards, and all the agents, 16 agents of the motorcade, never left the motorcade. Now, there's a little footnote. Thomas Lem Johns, one of Vice President Lyndon Johnson's agents, got up. He never left the road. He out of the vice presidential fob car, stayed on the road, and hopped a ride into the press car. But and he also thought one of the shots came from the front too. He's one of several agents, Paul
Right.
Hannis, for Soros. But the point being is, you would think they learned the ultimate lesson. Even if somebody out there believes the official story, it was only one man from behind in a rooftop on a building. Hello, you would think that'd be the number one thing. I know in the James J. Riley Beltsville, Maryland training center, to this day, these agents are trained, retrained, and retrained again. That's constantly part of their whole modus operandi. The training doesn't stop. It's not like when most people think of their jobs. They think, after 30 days, 60 days, whatever, the training's pretty much stopped. Maybe intermittent training here and there. Not for the Secret Service. One of the things they're constantly showing is the Zapruder film to remind them this is what happened
Yeah.
if you fail. And obviously to this day, and I told you since FDR, but it's been for decades. They guard rooftops. So again,
Right.
you got the situation. We got one rooftop sticks out like a sore thumb, other than the two rooftops with the counter sniper teams on them. And how they left this open is just unbelievable to me. And again, only 140 yards or so, which is nothing. Now, here's the thing: just like shades of Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald was supposedly a bad shot, but in that day he allegedly, does this amazing marksmanship thing. Well, Thomas Matthew Crooks also was supposedly a bad shot, so bad he didn't even make his high school rifle team. Yet he comes within a gnat's eyelash of killing Trump, grazing his ear with an AR-15 style bullet.
Right. And would have
Just
hit him direct in the head if it hadn't been for him turning
yeah,
his head. And maybe a
and
little wind. I read that possibly the prevailing wind that day may have deflected the bullet slightly to the
that
left. And
I'm sure that
yeah.
helped a little bit. Yeah, no doubt. But and just the whole thing. Oh, and then another glaring omission is the advance agents. Now, the advance agents get their minimum of minimum of 48 hours in advance, but usually 2 weeks in advance. But let's even just say, they only had 48 hours. That is plenty of time. You could argue 48 seconds or 48 minutes is plenty of time to look and see. There's this rooftop. We have to get someone on there. We have to have a drone and or human surveillance there. That's tech, because they did the magnetometers, didn't
Right.
think about having the glass partition. So these advance agents really dropped the ball here too. So it's a combination thing. The site agents seemed like they were wet behind the ears, green around the gills. You had the advance team, and he had the lack of rooftop surveillance. And then the agents that did act, they started out doing a great job, but then they let him dictated security, which the presidents are never supposed to. Secret Service is the boss of the president when it comes to security, not the other way around. And they left them a stationary target, like you said. And I think there's going to be an investigation. I hope it's not some sort of blue ribbon whitewash. I hope they really do
Yeah.
a legitimate thing here, investigate.
And it's such a problem for us, right? Because you have the Inspector General at DHS has opened an investigation, but that's the agency investigating itself, or the department investigating the agency.
Exactly.
And then you have the FBI investigation. Well, the FBI is the agency that planned and executed Crossfire Hurricane to try to rig the 2016 election for Hillary Clinton. So can we really trust the FBI to do an honest investigation? I'm very skeptical of the FBI or any agency of this government
Oh, I
at
don't
this
blame you.
point.
Look at back in Hoover's day. They were the
Yeah.
ones they were the primary investigative arm for the Warren Commission, and we know how that turned out.
Yeah,
So there you
exactly.
go. Yeah, it's definitely so. Yeah, it's like the chickens, or was it the fox guarding the chicken house? It's sort of like you got to like really like take things with a grain of salt. I just hope it isn't going to be a situation where they oh, my cat's going nuts here. Sorry about that.
I have a similar cat. Yes, he's not around right now.
Hey man, did you get that? But anyway, yeah, sorry about the distraction. But yeah,
No,
it's
it's all right.
I know. Oh man, he's all right now. But
So
yeah,
we've got the film here. The video in the upper left here is Trump getting up. You know, they've had him down,
yes,
getting him up, and here's where they leave him exposed. Look, the lady agent who is so short is in front of him. His whole head's exposed. They let him stand there for 10 seconds, shake his fist, which, you know, I mean, it's an iconic moment, but they really
yeah,
should not have let him do that, right? I mean,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, look how exposed it makes a great photo, an iconic moment, and everything.
yeah,
Show he's all right and everything. But again, he's left open. You can never assume. Now, yeah, of hindsight, another shooter was this Thomas Matthew Crooks acting alone, but you could never say for sure in that moment. You know, it could have been a tragedy that was initially averted and they succeeded after the fact. Now it turned out there's these stories about an Iranian plot to kill
right.
Trump,
Yes,
and that's why they beefed up security. Now they beefed up security supposedly, but there was this awful breach of security here on several levels here. That's what it really blows my mind, David. I just can't believe that the advanced team dropped the ball, the site agents dropped the ball, and the rooftop was left for some kid. There's a ladder there. Now there's debate where the ladder was a permanent ladder or something that he brought. Let's just say for sake of argument, no, it was a permanent ladder. He didn't bring a ladder. Okay, fair enough. You wouldn't think to guard that ladder, even if there was no one on the rooftop, which should have been, even if they just would have guarded the ladder, how's he going to get up there? So it just boggles the mind. And it also grist for the mill, Dave. There's people that think that it wasn't just negligence. There's some people that think there actually could have been a dirty element of the Secret Service. All it takes is a few guys. Now
right.
it's obvious, it's come out now, the January 6, 2021 incident that several of the agents were texting and how their displeasure about future President Biden. They weren't fans of his. There's agents that have come out during the Clinton era that didn't like Hillary or Bill Clinton. During the JFK era, there were several agents who were disgusted by Kennedy's private life. Back
Sure.
in the 60s, divorce was a scarlet letter, and these guys were working for pennies, guarding the president. He's in a hotel room. I'm a big fan of JFK, but his one fatal flaw was his private life. And so
Yeah.
you get some agents, they held it against them. And there you go. There's motive there for a little inaction. I always say with the Secret Service, what it is, it's action through inaction. It's not so much they're pulling triggers. If it's a nefarious situation, they just let the triggers do the job. It only takes a few seconds. I mean, it's sad to say because I'm a big admirer of the Secret Service. For many generations, they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you
You
said,
know,
they did wonderful job during the Reagan shooting, right? I mean,
yeah.
and so it's like it goes back and forth. But yeah, I mean, this incident is, and the other so disturbing factor of this is the director of the agency herself refusing to take any real responsibility whatsoever and
Oh,
just
Kimberly
making these
Cheadle.
lame excuses. Yeah,
Just reminds me of Dave. 10 years ago, I don't know if it's to the day, but 10 years ago, there was another female director and she had to resign because it
right.
was like a whitewash. Somebody scaled the White House fence and got into
Got
the
all the
White
way
House.
into the White House. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God! Imagine if he would have had a bomb on him, or even like a weapon, like yeah, I think he had a knife. But imagine if he had a pistol or a shotgun or something like this. Could have been a tragedy of epic proportions.
Yeah.
And here we go, 10 years later, hey, another female director. And the thing about the sloped roof, there's actually a meme going around. You can hear the audio. Cheadle saying something to the effect, well, these were sloped roofs and these can cause harm. But then they have the other part of the meme shows the two counter assault teams on sloped roofs. Then there's another meme shows the White House, part of it is a sloped roof. And then
Sure.
they show the FBI after the fact, not only hovering over his body, well, that was actually Secret Service and local police, but then they show another FBI agent hosing off the blood on the roof and he had no trouble getting on the roof. Ridiculous. I can't wait till the senators and congressmen. Suppose there's going to be a big epic investigation. I think it's even going to be televised. I can't wait to see it. There's going to be some heads that are going to roll, sacrificial lambs, and they'll just end up going to private security firms. So don't feel sorry for them. They'll still get their
Right.
pensions, but
Yeah.
something's got to be done. In fact, I'll tell you something bold. If President Trump would have been assassinated, besides all the horrible ramifications of that, I think that would have been the end of the Secret Service as a protective function. They could thank their lucky stars that they got away with, him being assassinated, because that I think it would have been two strikes, not three strikes you're out, two strikes you're out.
Yeah.
They vowed never to let the Kennedy assassination, anything like that happen again. they came damn close again. It just boggles my mind. It was in my backyard
Yeah,
too.
and so much of it has to do with the director having this big focus on DEI, which
Yeah,
is taking your eye off of the ball of the central. I mean, the reason the agency's there is to keep people alive. It's not
right.
to implement hiring quotas, right?
Exactly.
And it's such a clear example of taking your eye off the real mission, I think.
Yeah, because for years, like, you even see a lot of, again, not to be sexist or not, but a lot of the male agents, the regular members of Trump's detail, you could see during the Republican National Convention, they're big, burly guys. A lot of them
Yeah,
have military
yeah,
backgrounds. They're former police officers. That's the kind of people you need. Bless them and everything. But these female agents, maybe be good in field offices and that, but they obviously, from what I saw, I was not impressed with what I saw. I mean, I hate to say it, they look like rank amateurs out there. They look like they were scared. They didn't know what they were doing. The whole thing with the weapon, the
oh
holster.
yeah,
Oh,
that it was
that
like
was
a Keystone Cops routine. It really was.
exactly Keystone Cops. You
It was
got it.
really really bad. And yeah, I'm like you. I mean, I don't have any problem with women being in the service,
Yeah.
but
So same here.
Trump
Yeah.
is 6'4". He's a
Yeah.
big man. You got to
Yeah.
have big people surrounding him to protect him. If you're not going
Exactly.
to, yeah, it's bizarre to me that was allowed to take place. And if I was Trump, honest to goodness, I'd be hiring heavy private security to supplement the Secret Service and, frankly, keep an eye on the Secret Service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's one of my, it might be the very last one I posted, and I posted before. It's second 1963, and ABC's Ron Gardner's telling millions of people around the world that normally rooftops are guarded. How this was allowed to happen, he couldn't believe it, and he was talking about this has been going on for a number of years. Now
Yeah,
that little clip I found in 2020 during the pandemic, somebody had a whole bunch of ABC footage. A lot of it I already have, but there were some little bits and pieces I didn't have. And I was like, what is this? And it just augments what I've found in documents. And even a couple of books were written before the assassination. Just matter of fact, he says, whenever a president's in a parade, agents or police guard rooftops. I find newspaper articles, again, going back to FDR up to and including the Kennedy years when Kennedy went to Nashville, Memphis, France, you name it, they guard the rooftop. So again, 64
sure.
million dollar question: why didn't they do that in Dallas when 4 days before the major trip before to Tampa, Florida, November 18th?
Yeah, I was just about
They
to say that.
28-mile motorcade, almost
Yeah,
3 times as long as Dallas, and all the major rooftops were guarded by sheriff's department. In fact, I spoke to the lead motorcycle officer, Russell Groover, and he told me, "Oh yes, Vince, every single multi-story building was guarded with men heavily armed. If anybody would have did anything, they wouldn't have lived to tell." And he told me how they got away with ranch-style dwellings, one-story dwellings. Well, those were manned by military, police, and regular police, actually looking at the buildings from ground level, so to speak. But anything above that, they were guarding. It's
had
28
people on
miles
the
long. They had the
rooftop. Yeah,
resources to do that, yet they couldn't do that in Dallas. And again, the emphasis on this is rooftops, and you go straight to the present time, 60 years later, and it just boggles the mind. I get this all the
but
time. People don't understand it.
In Dallas, you compare that to Tampa. The other thing that was different is you had the Secret Service agents on the running boards on the side and back of the car, right? Which they took
Exactly,
off
Dave.
in Dallas.
Right, exactly. In fact, well, I discovered it in a fluke in 1991. I got a whole bunch of WFAA, which is the ABC affiliate in Dallas Fort Worth area, whole bunch of then VHS tapes, and I discovered that the Love Field Airport departure, you could see the limousine rolling out, and there's an agent jogging with a limousine. An agent behind in the fob car, the commander of the agents, Emory Roberts, stands up and waves his arm like this to pull him back.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
3 times Don Lawton goes like this, like, what gives? Turns out there's another agent, Henry Ribka, who was recalled right before he comes to the camera view. You can only see him in the newsreels, Henry Ribka. But the bottom line is there should have been coverage in the back of the car like there was in the Tampa trip. And again, the day before in San Antonio, a police helicopter was not only scoping the route, there was actually someone filming it. I don't know if they filmed the entire route, but there's actually color film from the vantage point of the helicopter the day before. and the list
Really?
goes on. Yeah, and in
Wow.
Fort Worth that morning, Secret Service agent Mike Howard came out years later to confirm my suspicions. You can kind of see a few photos. It looks like there's someone on the rooftop. It's a little inconclusive, and he said in interviews, matter of fact, oh, we had everybody we could get on the rooftops. We had firemen, we had police, we even had Boy Scout troops. Anybody to make sure that no one got any on any rooftops. That's why Kennedy lived through Fort Worth. So it's like, wow, they didn't think of doing this when he goes to Dallas. But the bottom line is 60 years later, and here we are. And it's the most obvious thing. It's not like a situation where there was many rooftops and 95% of them were covered, not to give an excuse. And this one didn't really stick out and just got lost in the shuffle. And it's still negligent, it's still terrible. But you could still give them a little bit of, well, this is one rooftop out of many
Yeah.
wasn't guarded, but it was the principal one that was adjacent. Oh, the other thing
Yeah.
that's ridiculous too is they try to claim it was the outer perimeter. Meantime, the Secret Service is still responsible for that. They're the ones who are going to have the local or state police guarding the rooftops. But it's 140 yards away. That's not an outer perimeter. That's still an inner perimeter.
No, I
So
could make that shot. I could make that shot.
there you go.
It's
Yeah.
not that with a precision rifle and scope. That's not a hard shot at all.
So
That's
yeah, I'm not a hunter. So Dave, that is like a relatively easy shot. You'd think, yeah.
oh,
I know people
totally,
work saying,
totally.
yeah,
I've shot deer from that distance easy and put the bullet right where I want to. And I'm not bragging. I'm not an especially good shot like my
it's
dad
okay.
was,
Yeah. Well, that
but that is
proves the
not a
point right
hard
there.
shot to make. It's
Yeah.
yeah, the wind could have affected it though, I guess a little bit, but
Little bit. It was
140
a little bit
yards
of
isn't.
it
Yeah.
was that is the wind and a little bit of luck with Trump turning his head to look at that chart.
Oh my God.
That's eerie video. All the different angles too are unbelievable. Oh, another thing too, I wanted to clear up something too. I do not believe this was staged. There's some
Oh
silly
my
stuff going
God.
on.
Joy
Here's the
Reid
thing.
was talking about that today.
Someone was killed. Two other people were critically injured. I think we can put away the stage thing. I can't
Yeah.
believe some people doing that. Now, if no one was hurt, it would at least be grist for the mill for people who are paranoid. Oh, it was staged, but someone was killed. A husband, a father was killed. Two other people were critically injured. Wasn't staged. We can end that right there. It's just
Yeah, and
ridiculous.
then the other
Yeah.
thing is this claim that, well, he wasn't hit by the bullet. It was shattered glass from the teleprompter screen, but clearly in the video, the teleprompter screens are undamaged. I mean,
Right.
that's
And
just
I got to
nonsense.
admit, that within the first 24 hours, I fell for that. I did think it might have been a shard of glass, but they've
Uh-huh.
shown real clear up close of and we just said it, they are not damaged. So that
No.
debunked that right away that the teleprompters were not damaged. Yeah, it was an actual bullet that just whizzed by his head like that. And, oh, the other interesting thing, too, is that Vincent Fusco, who's the QAnon's
Oh,
version of
right.
JFK Jr., was
Actually,
there. He's
that's shown in
standing.
this
You
video.
can
Yes.
see him behind there. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let me see if I can find it right quick. I think
There
he's
you go. You
in.
got
There
him.
he is, right there in
You
the
had him
derby
right there.
hat.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
here he
That's
is
him
in
right there. Yeah.
the pork pie hat with the long hair.
That's
So
really
this
been
guy
grist
is supposed to
for the
be
mill.
JFK Jr., right?
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
You
He
know
even
the
goes
thing.
by the name Vincent Fusco. He says
Uh-huh.
with his name, so
Yeah.
crazy, man.
Yeah. That whole conspiracy theory. In fact, I got to be honest with you, and I love a good conspiracy theory. That was one until my daughter told me about it the other day on Sunday. I was not even aware of that. I don't think I'd ever read that.
It's
But
silly. There
that's
was
a
a thing
bizarre
on
theory.
CNN about QAnon, and they showed them they were all in Dealey Plaza looking for JFK and JFK Jr. to come back. Meantime, they've bbeen dead for many years, and
When
ridiculous.
was that? 99 or 2000 when he had the plane crash?
Yeah, it was actually to the day. I think it was a day or two ago, 25 years ago. JFK Jr. died in a plane crash, and as we know, 60 years ago and change.
Hmm.
President
Hmm.
Kennedy, but that kind of clouds things. The fact he was there. I've been seeing TikToks run amok. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good things on TikTok. I'm surprised, like some of the videos you're showing. They made the rounds on TikTok, which is great. Amateur
Yeah.
video for the
Yeah.
iPhones. Thank God for iPhones. They have, they're crystal clear, unlike VHS tape that has degradation and fuzzy. These videos are unbelievable. But oh, by the way, in case you're wondering too, the street in Bethel Park where he's at is still closed off. They're still
Really?
investigating. I understand they're still trying to get into the shooter's phone.
Right.
And I understand they found no, it was today they finally got through and they found a whole bunch of photos and other evidence. Evidently, he was stalking not only Trump, but Biden. So it just
Really?
goes the whole thing about he's a registered Republican, but he gave money to the Democrats.
Right.
His dad was pro Trump. And even though the shooter was registered, he didn't like Trump, but again, he was also stalking Biden because he had a list of all the upcoming events for Biden too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Are you planning on? This is a great question Stu Turley set up. Is it going to be easier to write a book about this with all the video, sound, and so? Are you planning to write a book about this? Do you think?
I'm on the fence. Depends if I get anything that would be book length worthy and something that was really different. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think, I hate to say it, I think author Ronald Kessler is going to beat me to the punch. It sounds like from his posting and comments, he's already working on one as we speak, and he
Oh,
already has the
really?
inside
Wow.
track. Yeah. I mean, I'm on a really good, I'd call it a really good minor league publisher that, the books sell every week. They do well, but he's on a major publishing company. So it's like, he's going to have the inside track to sources and he'll have the inside track to get something like a publisher. So that's a long winded way of saying I don't have a lot of confidence that I would be able to gin up something in time and
Right.
something.
Right.
Yeah. So, but hey, at least I've hit the podcast like crazy this week. It's been
That's
nonstop,
great.
man. Yeah.
Well, I just love your work. Before I forget about it, tell folks where they can find your books because I mean these are great books that people interested in this subject really need to read.
Oh, I really appreciate it, man. Thank. In fact, here's 5 of them. I got a 6th one coming out in October. The Plot to Kill President Kennedy in Chicago. You can get them
Yeah.
on Amazon. The best way to do it would be they're in paperback and Kindle, and you could literally the easiest way to do is go on Google, type my name in, Vince Palamara. It's always Palamara, and you'll go right to the first thing you'll see on Google is Amazon, and that's how you can get
Yeah.
the books.
Yeah.
So
And we're going to have all that information in the show notes for this
great.
podcast. You're working on this book about the plot to kill him in Chicago.
Yeah, it's coming out in
And
October. Yeah,
yeah, so talk a little bit. Yeah, we've got about 7 minutes left here before you have to
sure.
go, I think. And
Yeah,
yeah, that is such a fascinating subplot to the JFK assassination. Talk a little bit about what
sure.
you're founding there.
Oh yeah. For years, people have said Chicago plot. Well, we just have former Secret Service agent Abraham Bolden's word for there's a plot, and there's this Edwin Black article, 1975 Chicago Independent. But even that used Bolden as a source. The fine printers, there were several sources to that article. They're actually named. Thomas Cole is one of the people. Sherman Skolnick also admitted to being a source. He was a Chicago investigative legal person behind the scenes. He was a source for it. But anyway, the bottom line is for many years, people on the other side of the fence, so to speak, not conspiracy authors and theorists, have said, I don't know, we can hang everything on Bolden. Bottom line, my book coming out, there's a lot more to it than Bolden. I've actually uncovered more corroborative evidence of a plot, actually named names, and there's another major source beyond Abraham Bolden. And
Wow.
also, the subtext of the book is called The Plot to Kill President Kennedy in Chicago. But the second line is, in the other traces of conspiracy that led to the assassination of JFK, a visual investigation. And what I show is a lot of other stops through 61 to 63, when Kennedy visited other cities, there were other plots to kill him, other people that wanted him blown away, and there was other
Right.
stepped up security measures. So when you see the book in total, obviously it's an episode on the Chicago plot, but there's several chapters that deal, and you actually see the evidence yourself. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can actually see the newspaper articles, the documents, the testimony, whatever, my interviews of the actual former agents, and whatnot, and you can compare and contrast. You can say to yourself, it's very hard to believe that one man, Lee Harvey Oswald, got lucky when there was all these other threats, things in process all through the intervening short years and months before, and weeks and days before.
Yeah.
So when people, I think it's just because a lot of times people think, books. What are you going to talk about now? The single bullet theory, the 2 million time? No, this is all new information. So
Yeah.
I think people are going to be
And
interested.
and that plot in Chicago even involved a patsy whose
Thomas Arthur
whose
Valley.
Thomas Arthur Valley, whose profile was amazingly like Lee Harvey Oswald's, right?
Yeah, they
Even
both
looked
were
like
the
him.
Japanese CIA-based
Yeah.
military installations. The one was Camp Atsu for Valley. It was Camp Atsugi-based, the U-2
Hmm.
planes. And even in 1975, when Thomas Arthur Valley was contacted by the Chicago Independent, first thing out of his mouth was the plot to kill President Kennedy, Soldiers Field. And his sister has even come out with author James Douglas and corroborate a lot of things about her brother and how he was made to be a scapegoat for all this. But like I said, it's a lot more than just Abraham Bolden. So Abraham Bolden's been vindicated, but to say it turns out, I'll just a little sneak preview of one thing. It turns out the Secret Service in 1967 was investigating Abraham Bolden's claims, because Abraham Bolden was actually
Wow.
leaking to the press certain things. It actually made the New York Times, a couple other things. So a small article that former agent alleges plot in Chicago 3 weeks before assassination. They investigate, and son of a gun, if they didn't find corroborative evidence and didn't tell a soul about it. These were only released in 2017 to 2018, thanks to President Trump, the file releases, and they were basically ignored by the research community. I'm just
I
amazed. No
know.
one made great haven, because, again, it seems like if it we're like, oh, whatever. Next, let's look at CIA documents. Let's hear about Hoover and the mafia. But the Secret Service gets short shrift to a lot of people. And I find these documents that corroborate and name names of who Abraham Bolden was checking out in the short days before November 2nd. And well, you'll see the documents and you'll see for
Yeah.
yourself. It's going to really open
And for
some
folks who
eyes.
don't know, Abraham Bolden was the first black Secret Service officer in the history of the agency, and he
Yeah, the
got a
White House
raw
vetoed him.
deal in
He
the wake of
definitely
the
did.
assassination. Yeah,
And he was pardoned by President Biden, by the way, too.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
he
he
got a
was.
pardon on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Hey, Vince, I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. This is such a pleasure for me. I really appreciate it.
oh, Dave, my
Everyone,
pleasure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I would love to have you back sometime to get into more of this stuff. I
Hey,
just love
maybe
it.
when the book comes out,
Hey,
maybe
let's
like
do it.
late September, early October, we can do something. Yeah,
Let's do it. Yeah, we'll plan on that. I've got your contact information. I'll be pinging you along about that time.
that sounds good. Yeah, just let me know when this link comes out and all that. It sounds good, man. I'll promote it myself.
All right, man. Thank you so much. And thanks for Stu Turley for getting us all the great clips. And thanks for everybody for watching. And we will talk to you next time. Here we
Thanks
go.
a lot. Take care.
Thanks.